Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the KPPA Audit Committee regular meeting. And I'll call the meeting to order. And the first thing, ask for the opening video teleconference statement by Vicki Hale, please.
Yes, sir. For the record, I want to note that this is a regular meeting of the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority Audit Committee. This meeting is being broadcast at the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority offices located at 1260 Louisville Road, Frankfort, Kentucky, and by video and telephonic conference, and is being broadcast to the public by Facebook pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statute Section 61.826. I ask if you are speaking and not appearing by video, please identify yourself before talking. In the event the video or audio broadcast is interrupted, we will attempt to reestablish a connection. If a connection cannot be reestablished within 30 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled to another date.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rankin, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. O'Mara,
Here.
Mr. Cheatham,
Here.
Miss Eves,
Here.
Mr. Fulkerson, Miss Hampton,
Here.
and Mr. Summers.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment, Ms. Rankin?
No, sir. No public comment today.
Thank you again. Next is approval of the November 19th, 2024 KPPA Audit Committee members. Everyone hopefully had a chance to review them. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second. Any corrections, discussion, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Those minutes are approved. Next is the GASB 68 and GASB 65 proportional share audits. And again, we have from Blue & Company, Ryan Graham. Mr. Graham, can you walk us through those, please?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. We have 4 reports for you today to see. That looks a little different than last year. We now have a OPEB and pension for both the K and the C systems. So still the same content, it's just now they're each in their own report with their own opinions. And so there are 4 of them. It makes it just when you go to the CERS statement, there's no KERS allocations within that one for pension like there is previously. That's really the only change. Same methodologies of allocation that the actuary used year over year, so on and so forth. So I'm going to talk about all 4 together because they all have the same 2 reports in each statement. So for each of them, if you can go to page 10 of the PDF, please. This is your first opinion. Again, you'll see 4 just like this, just with the names of the schedules updated. Ultimately, we're issuing an unmodified or clean opinion, which is exactly what you want to see for these. And then I will acknowledge, and we've talked a little bit about this, go on down to page 41 of the PDF. Acknowledging this, no one can read this without zooming in a significant amount, but the Excel files are also posted in conjunction with these online so that people can more easily read the line across. We've talked a little bit about in the future, are there ways that we can make this more readable? I don't have direct solutions at the moment, but something that we did talk a little bit about with Mike this past year. And then this includes both the hazardous and non-hazardous plan. You have consistent footnotes, scheduling on down. And then finally on page 63 of the PDF, you have the opinion on internal controls. No significant deficiencies and material weaknesses noted among any of these different reports. And it is dated March 14th. Really, I think that we could issue it sooner than that if so choose by the team as well. But up to hearing any comments or questions that you all may have.
Any questions for Mr. Graham?
Anything from Mike?
I have nothing to add. I want to commend Blue for their work and their effort on pulling these together for us, and thank them.
Yes.
I will
Thank you.
add one thing. If you do Windows key plus, it enlarges your document and you can read it.
There are solutions, but it's definitely, when you first look at it, it is microscopic. It's a lot of information to put on one sheet. And so that's trying to figure out like how to still make it readable along a row. That's tough.
Well, I have every confidence in you and Mike working together on maybe a bit of an improvement for next year's presentation. But we thank you for putting it all together. The new separate report for both C and K. Appreciate the effort and the clean opinion. So, do I have a motion to approve the draft GASB 68 and GASB 75 proportional share audits for both C and K?
I'll make that motion, Bill, but I'd like, anything they can do to get that out earlier. I know our employers need that to complete their audits. I'd just like to put that on the record.
I believe we're approving a draft before the full KPPA board approves. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we have the capability of putting the Excel sheets and the draft reports out on the website as draft so that the employers can begin to look at them. Obviously, we'll put a statement out there that they're draft, subject to change until finally approved by the KPPA board, but we could do that presently.
Sounds like a good idea. All right. So we have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That passes. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
All your staff.
Mr. Chair, I did want to notate that during that conversation and right before the motion, Mr. Fulkerson did join us. So I want to notate that, and I will note his attendance today.
Thank you. Welcome, Jim Tony. Next is Connie Davis.
Thank you. I'm sorry about the problem I had logging in. Sorry. Bye.
No problem. Ms. Davis, would you want to talk us through the submission of the 2024 C and K Annual Comprehensive Financial Report?
Good morning, everyone. The KPPA is required by Kentucky Revised Statute to provide the Legislative Research Commission and the Auditors of Public Accounts with the copies of our ACFR. We loaded them to the website on December 6th and notified them that they were out there. We also notified the finance cabinet too, so that they would know that they are out there, because they use things that are in our ACFR in their ACFR for the end of the year. And this is just informational for you all. Do you have any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, hearing none. Let's go to an update on external audit request for proposal. Is Angela Stevens available to go through that with us, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Well, there is a new closing date on the RFP for auditing services. The new closing date is March 13th, 2025. Responses are due by 4 p.m. We are anticipated to have a contract start date of July 1st of 25. That is dependent upon if there will be oral presentations and negotiations that could affect that date, but that is the goal.
Yes.
How long is the contract?
Do you know the length of the contract in RFP?
Have extensions?
Of the current contract or the contract we are trying to
In the bid?
establish a new contract for?
Yes.
The new one, yes.
Yes. It would be July 1st of 2025 to my whole thing just shut down. Hold on. My apologies.
It's pretty standard to make them 2 years with renewals, 1 year renewals for 3 1 year renewals with them.
Yeah.
Gives you some options.
Yes,
We actually got an exception to do it for 3 years from the
we did.
procurement board to be in line with the biennial budget. So the RFP, from my understanding, went out for an initial 3-year contract.
Yes, it is a 3-year. That puts us back in the biennium.
And somewhere in there fits the audit from the state auditors?
Yeah, so after the 3rd year, the APA would then,
Okay.
well,
Yes, thank you, Michael.
aligns with the APA's timing of if they did the audit after the 5th year as well.
Thank you.
What?
And who makes the decision on who the auditors are or continue to be?
Well, from this RFP, we'll have a evaluation committee that will do the review and scoring.
Then will they then make a recommendation back to this committee?
That is a good question, but I believe that their recommendation would have to be, yeah, you all would have to have the ultimate decision.
Yeah, statutorily, KPPA is the one who has to choose the auditor. The external
Yes.
CPA firm,
Right,
so-
it has to be the full KPPA board, that's my
So
understanding.
there could be an extension from the audit committee to see it first and recommend it up, but eventually the KPPA board needs to choose the auditor. That is the external audit.
Thank you.
I'm a little concerned on the dates. In order to get the approval done and allow the auditor to begin work on the 2025 year end. Do you have a plan to be able to get them up and going?
Your concern is good concern. It's also my concern. The ultimate backup plan is Blue is currently on contract for another year. We do have a right in that contract to cancel that contract after a 30-day notice. So the intent was to receive bids. My assumption is that Blue would bid again for the new contract. And then if we get done on time through the bidding process, we'll have a selected auditor in time. If not, we always have the fallback of the contract that is in place with Blue.
Well, I'm good to hear that you have a fallback. Just a little concerned about the lateness of the process, given the work volume that's demanded during the summer.
Understood? Yes, sir.
Okay.
And have there been any firms that have been submitted responses to the RFP yet? If so, how many?
There have not been any at this time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the update, and we'll cross our fingers and see how that progresses. Appreciate it, Ms. Stevens.
Bill,
Thank you.
Oh,
Angela,
hold on.
I don't know Angela. What department is she in?
Angela, could you introduce yourself and where you work for us for reference?
Yes, my name is Angela Stevens, and I am the with the Office of Procurement and Office Services.
For KPPA.
For KPPA.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, for KPPA.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions for Ms. Stevens? All right, next we'll go to legal updates and information disclosure incidents. Mr. Nathan Goodrich, would you want to walk us through those, please?
Absolutely. Good morning. In the second quarter of 2025, we had 6 potential disclosures, 3 of which we determined were not disclosures or breaches. 1 implicated state law and 2 implicated KPPA's data disclosure notification policy. The state law disclosure affected 7 members. Apparently, a IT vendor had an issue with where a technological glitch allowed a member to see forms on file for another member. We determined that affected 7 members, and we followed up with those members, and we are seeking affidavits from the members who could have potentially viewed the information and determining whether they retained the information or not. And so we followed all policies to notify outside agencies in accordance with that policy. We also had 2 internal data disclosure policy issues. Both of those involved unauthorized parties attempting to change direct deposit for members, and we were able to solve those and make sure that there were no loss of funds to the members as a result of those attempts. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about these.
Nathan, I want to thank you for making the presentation. Good to meet you, and I guess we'll see you on a regular basis.
Yes, I'll be, for those of you that don't know, I have taken over for Carrie Bass as the Staff Attorney Supervisor in the Office of Legal Services Non-Advocacy Division. And so in areas where you may have seen Carrie Bass in the past, I'll be expecting to see you all.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to anonymous tips. Ms. Stephanie Hold, can you walk us through those, please?
Sure thing. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Hold, the investigator in the Office of Legal Services, and I'm here to provide information related to the fraud tips we've received since the last audit committee meeting held in November. Since that time, we've received 3 new tips. 2 of these tips are currently pending, and 1 was closed after a review. So that leaves us with 7 open tips, with 6 of those involving employer reporting allegations, and 1 involves an allegation of disability retirement fraud. You can scroll down, Cherry. Lastly, we were able to close 2 of the cases that were open as of the last audit meeting. 1 involved an alleged prearranged agreement and was closed due to lack of evidence, and 1 was closed once it was determined none of the reported allegations involved the KPPA. It's short and sweet. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Hold? Well, we thank you and your efforts in this important program that we have, and good transparency in the reporting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Right now we'll move on to actual audit committee administrative updates with Ms. Kristen Coffey.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start with the update on our budget. So we are halfway through the year, and we have 63%, roughly 63% of the budget remaining. which is on target because the second half of the year is where we see a few more of our expenses. We will have an intern joining us in May, and we also pay for our audit software towards the end of the year. So we are currently on target to be within budget this year, but happy to take any questions about the budget if you have any. There will also be some upcoming conferences in the next half of the year.
So where does your audit software fit in here?
It is under 847T computer equipment.
Computer equipment, okay.
And the regional or national conference, is that going to impact some of these dollars?
It will. So they're budgeted. I will be doing a virtual training, so it is national, but I'll do it from here. And then we have one person who will be actually going to St. Louis for a national conference. So,
thank you. Any other questions on budget? All right. Internal audit project status.
So Sherry, if you can move down to the next page.
Another one of our spreadsheets.
I know, another one of our spreadsheets that are hard to read. So this is the status of our current projects. The ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that have gone over budget, and the next page, Sherry, you don't have to go to it yet, but the next page shows the list of those, the reason why those have gone over budget, and I can get to those in a moment. But right now we have, for the year, we've issued 10 audits. We have 4 in progress, 3 that we are getting ready to start, and there are also 17 other projects that we're working on. A couple of them are closed, most of them are in process, and we'll go through the end of the year. It's board meetings or just miscellaneous projects that go throughout the year. So Sherry, if you can go to that next page now. So that box there, that has the reason for why some of the audits have gone over budget. One of them, the process was just, we set a time budget, and as we started working on it, it was just a little more involved than we initially thought, so it just took us a little more time to learn the process. We had another one that was started by one auditor, but then he left, and another auditor had to come in and pick up the audit, and that takes a little extra time when you're trying to look at somebody's work and figure out how to pick it up. And one of the audits was used as our training audit, where we have our 2 new people. We set the budget, but then when we decided it would be a really good training audit because it was just an easier audit. So that just added some time to that audit. And then the other one that has gone over deals with the CERS election. There's just been a little more involved than it was last time, so that one has gone over budget a little bit. But those are the explanations for the overages for the audits that we've completed. And Sherry, if you go to the next page, I know, another small spreadsheet. This kind of flows into it's also the status and the kind of the next audit, the next topic as well. But so this is just a new way to look, or another way to look at the status of the project. So this is that audit plan that the audit committee approved about a year ago. So this is showing the status of the audits, but in the version of the plan as you saw it. So if it's highlighted in yellow, those are the audits that we've completed, and those are the actual hours that we've spent on that audit. If it has a red font, it is in progress, and that is the to date, what we have spent on it. And then the black, those haven't been started yet. And you also can see that we've added a column to show the estimated hours that non-audit staff are spending on this. So if we do an audit with accounting, how much time did accounting spend on it? How much time did procurement spend on something? That way you're getting a true overall look at how many hours this is taking. So that's something that we were asked to add that in. Right now, for the most part, those are estimates, but we are working with management. They are starting to track the actual hours, so it'll be a little more, not quite an estimate, but a little more accurate going forward. So that's just a new way that we wanted to show this, but happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions on status update? I want to thank you for the addition of asking for staff hours so that this will build a point of reference for the committee to know about how big a project we're proposing in future, as well as informing them on our expectations of their commitment when we ask you to do an audit. So I think it's a good step forward.
And say I've worked with Mike Lamb and Mr. Barrow on this. They've been very helpful in getting that information. So thank you both here. Thank you all for that.
Kristen, do you have an electronic timekeeping system for people to input time, or is it just, how is that?
The audit team has an electronic system for their time. So, and they put it in not just by project, but by the phase, the planning phase of the audit, field work, completion, time spent on review. But that's just the audit team that has that.
And they do that daily or weekly or?
I recommend they do it daily, but they do it at least weekly.
And the other people that contribute time to this, they don't have an electronic system?
I'm not sure how they are tracking their time. No. It could be electronic, but I'm not sure.
Currently, we're trying different methods of trying to track staff time that is spent on internal audits. We're using an old program called Project Tracker that's accessible to everyone at KPPA. Different divisions have set up different tracking mechanisms to help obtain the hours spent on the internal audits. And we're doing it as a trial run to see how well it works and maybe how we can continue to do it going forward, or if there's a different tool we want to use.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the administration for adding this to your list of to-dos, and I hope it's beneficial in our planning and execution in the future.
Yeah, I think it's important that we sort of understand the full cost of an audit. And when we only get, it's pretty obvious here, I mean, that, you know, I don't know what the ratio is, but it looks like a lot more hours comes from the staff than internal audit. So I think that's important to know.
So based on what we've seen so far, it's about 20%, it's an average of about 20% of the time we spend on it, they spend. They spend 20% of the time we do, is what it's worked out to as on an average.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Then let's move on to your issued reports, please.
We will, and I think first up is Madeline. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yes, I am. Morning, everyone. So I have the first two audits to present to you all today. Both involve the investments group, so we picked on them a bit. The first project I'm going to present involved ops, as well as the investment group, and the second one involved legal. And all three groups across these two projects were very generous with their time in helping us understand the processes audited and answering all the questions that we had throughout the project. So the first one I'll go over, we're already on page 162, I believe. So this one was about the investment related administrative fees. So that's including we call them non-legal vendors and legal vendors. So the non-legal vendors would include people like Wilshire or Solovis, and the investment related legal expenses are coming from vendors like Reinhardt. And for each, Sherry, if you could switch or scroll down to, let me find the page number. To 164. Yes, so this is our control matrix. It tells which risk we tested, the control, what the actual steps are, how we tested it, and the testing results. but I wanted to point out the sampling methodology at the top of the page here. So this is how we selected our sample and how much of the population we sampled. But for each of the sampled invoices, we made sure it was approved by the appropriate people and paid correctly by checking the value and the banking information against the invoice. We also recalculated the invoice with the contracted rate when we were able to make sure that what we were charged matches what we signed up for. We also checked the allocation across the 5 plans to ensure that it followed the board approved allocation method. And then we made sure the invoice and the contract and any other supporting evidence was saved for future reference. And finally, for the legal investment related fees, we made sure that EMARS agreed with the total transferred from Mellon to Chase, so that way those people could be paid out of EMARS. For this project, we had no reportable findings, and the few issues that we did find were management letter level issues, and you can see these described starting on page 171 of the materials. Yes. So the one I wanted to point out specifically is recommendation number 3, which I believe should be on the next page. Yes, so this issue, we just wanted to point out that there needs to be some kind of policy in place to ensure that invoices across the agency, not just invoices that we looked at in this audit, but all invoices were submitted to accounting on time so that they had enough time to pay it by that 30-day deadline. And that's the only specific thing I wanted to point out. Other than that, it was a pretty good audit. Do you guys have any questions about the investment admin fee audit? I don't see any hands going up. So we will move on to.
Let me do it first, Madeline.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to accept the issued report on the review and investment administrative fees as presented?
So moved.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that's passed. Thank you. Go ahead, Madeline.
All right. So, all right, we're on the right page. This next one is about investment policies. And for this audit, what we did is we read through the C and K investment policies, and we made sure that they complied with state and federal laws. And then we also reviewed the policies within C and K to ensure that there were no conflicts between the board specific policies. For this project, we had 3 reportable findings and a few other issues that were addressed in the management letter. I'll go over the 3 findings here. Let's start on page 177, please. Okay, so here we got a lot of detail. The short version of the first one is that compliance to all investment policies is not being monitored. There's the IPS, but we didn't find evidence that investment policies such as the procurement policy were being reported to the board and ensuring compliance to the investment procurement policy. We recommended that a compliance officer be hired, and this audit was completed in November of 2024, so it doesn't account for the most recent addition to the investment team, which is a compliance officer. Is there any questions about this finding? Yeah. The second one is about the approval of policies. There were a few where we couldn't find sufficient evidence to say that it had been approved appropriately. And we also determined based on some interviews that there's confusion on who is responsible for establishing and enforcing policies and procedures. For the KRS procurement policy, which is one that we couldn't find evidence that it was approved appropriately, we recommended that the CEOs talk to legal about and the CIO to see if it needed to be presented again for proper approval. And for the confusion about who's responsible for establishing and enforcing policies, we recommended that the CEOs should establish a process to ensure that the right people are approving policies and that for the signature process, there's documentation that the one that was approved by the board is the one that's being signed and the one that's being uploaded to the KPPA website. And management stated that they would work with the CEOs about implementing any policies and procedures they adopt regarding the posting of information to documents to the website. Is there any question about this finding? Now I'll go on to the last one. This one is about the securities trading policy. We found that this policy doesn't provide specific requirements to ensure that employees and trustees are not violating the federal security laws. And we also found that the current pre-clearing process may not be sufficient to satisfy what that policy is intending. That the submitting of the certification of understanding is not meeting the overall objective, but also that the pre-clearing process is not sufficient to prevent non-compliance. We recommended that the CIO and the compliance officer, once that person is hired, review this policy to ensure that the intended goal to prevent non-compliance was accomplished. And since that person's been hired, we've not followed up yet about this, but management agreed at the time that they would develop procedures. So that's all for this audit. Well, actually, one more piece. The management letter items start on page 184. And these are all fairly small issues. So there's nothing specific that I wanted to point out here. But if you all have questions about what's on this portion of it, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, do we have questions on this item?
Just a couple of comments. You know, it's operating in accordance with your policy and knowing what your policy is, of course, is important for our, you know, it makes an awful easy target by a plaintiff when they can point to inconsistencies in the policies or inconsistencies between operation and policy. So it is, in my opinion, that's very important to do the recommendations and get the policies in place and consistency. The other thing I'd just throw out is sometimes when there are just policies and procedures and it just goes on and it's impossible to find consistency sometimes. Over time, in some organizations, I've seen the sort of a policy that says the most recent one is the one that's operational. In other words, if one is inconsistent in the past, it's the most recent one that the agency says we follow or we're supposed to follow or we mean to follow. So I just throw that out as a thought. compare from the past to say that if it's a more recent one, then that's the controlling policy or procedure.
All right, Mr. Cheatham?
Yeah, I want to go to your third item, the securities trading policy.
Mhm.
First off, I don't know that I have seen whatever our policy is, but have been in the industry. Have we not ever looked at using an outside vendor to monitor those issues? I'm required to do so on my end.
Mhm.
It seems to me it would take an awful lot off the plate of the compliance officer, other than obviously reviewing the reports and following up. But one of the questions I've got outside of the investment office, who else is required by the current policy to be subject to the oversight?
The current policy would apply to anyone who has access to investment activities. So that would include internal audit since we look at investments. It would include ops and maybe some in accounting.
It also included every division director. The current policy includes every division director for KPPA.
Does it not also include trustees?
It would, yes. Mhm.
The trustees are exempt from certain parts of the current policy.
Okay, I would think that would need to be reviewed as well then.
We didn't ask about a third party doing that monitoring, but that's something we can ask Steve and Carrie about and get back to you on.
I think I provided Ed some information on the vendor that my broker dealer currently uses for that.
Okay.
It'd be a starting place for you.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
And I'd like to ask John and Ed if the recommendations to them to sort of take the lead on some of these things do you think that's appropriate for you all, and are you willing to, or do you have a reaction?
I'd be glad to. Yeah.
And Ms. Eves, I think it's very appropriate that the CEO take the lead position here. So we're excited to do it. It was a very well run and conceived audit that brought up and identified areas that needed to be addressed, and we're looking forward to doing that.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments on this audit? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the issued report on the review of Office of Investment Policies as presented?
So move.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. Thanks so much. First and second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, no? All right, thank you, Madeline.
Mm-hmm. And there's just one more audit about pro cards, and I believe Kristen's going to present on that.
I am. I will take this one. So this one starts on page 187. And before I go into what we were looking at, this is our most recently issued audit, and we have made a minor change. So when the audit committee approves the audit plan, they are looking at the risk or the process that was identified during our risk assessment, and that which is what fuels the audits that we are going to perform. So what we've done is we've added this strategic risk. It used to be called the objective, but that is the risk that was identified on the audit plan that was approved. So now the audit committee can see, okay, this was the risk that was identified, and this is the audit that is addressing that specific risk. So we just thought that might be information that the audit committee or management may want to see, so we have now included that in the report. We just added it, that's why you didn't see it in the other two. So this was a review of ProCards. This was a follow-up on a previous audit that was conducted in 2018. In general, we found that the process complied with statutes and regulations and that internal controls were established and working effectively. We did not have any reportable findings for this audit, but we did have a few management letter items. And Sherry, those start on page 193. So we had, that first audit deals with sales tax. There were just a few items where sales tax was paid mainly with subscriptions like the Wall Street Journal, a couple to like Walmart or Kroger. So we had just recommended that staff try to recoup those payments if they could, but once you pass a certain time, sometimes places won't issue you a refund. But more importantly, to work with current staff and vendors to communicate our tax exempt status and stop paying the tax in the future. And that has been done. Mike's team worked with the vendors and we have communicated that status, and the tax is no longer being paid on the subscription, and they tried to get a refund from Walmart, but apparently Walmart said a year was too long. But it was only about $2, so not a material amount. And the other finding deals with the coding of the expenditures. So when we code the items in the financials, was the expenditure coded properly? And where this can come into play is when you're making your budget for the next year, you look at expenses from the prior year to help build that budget. And if you code items incorrectly, then your budget could be off. None of these were so significant that it would throw off that amount. That's why it's in a management letter. But we did find 4 that we thought could be should have been coded differently. 2 of those were corrected, and the other 2 dealt with IT, and they all roll up into the same overall line item at the end of the year anyway. So there was no need to correct those. So every issue that was identified has already been corrected. We verified that it was corrected. So this audit, these are all considered closed from an audit standpoint, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right. Hearing no questions, is there a motion to accept the issued report on the review of the procurement card process as presented?
So moved.
Thank you.
I second.
Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. That passes. All right. Now, do you have any other updates for the committee?
No other updates audit related. We are, you know what? I'll take that back. Yes, I do. We are starting the risk assessment process for fiscal year 26. So surveys have been sent out to management here, KPPA management, and surveys will also go out to the audit committee. So look for that in probably this week. I just wanted to let you all know before you got an email about it. So this is just asking for feedback, what you may see as a risk, anything that may concern you. It's a survey. It has a few questions on it, and then there's that open-ended, do you have any concerns, just in general. Any feedback we can get really helps us build that plan. And we've already started getting feedback from KPPA management. So we will get that, and then I will work with the audit chair and vice chair, and we will come up with that audit plan. I'll work with KPPA management, and you will have the risk assessment and audit plan to approve in May.
Very good.
I think you said something about an intern coming on.
We do. We have an intern. As far as I know, all interns are starting May 16th across the state. So we're still interviewing, so we don't have one yet. We had interviews last week, and we have some this week. So.
Good response then. Very good. All right, any other questions for Ms. Coffey?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the one audit report she's identified that is problematic or is lingering and needs some follow-up is the one about the investment policies and the consistency or the inconsistency and the authority to have those policies. And I would like to, if you think appropriate, to delegate to someone, John and Ed, for example, or maybe Ryan, whoever you is appropriate, that at our next meeting, we get a follow-up on what has been done in response to those audit suggestions, if that is something that we can get an ongoing report on, because I think that, that's one area of exposure that we can control. So many areas we can't control, but that's one we could fix.
Mr. Barrow, you take that?
Yes, yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Good suggestion. Anyone else? All right, well, next is professional articles. Will Prince, can you walk us through those, please?
Yes, good morning. Yes, we're already on page 196. Yes, so our professional article today is Who Owns Transaction and Controls Monitoring? This article addresses the false common sense of security and thinking that someone else or another department is in charge and owns a particular control and has it covered. Are sensitive processes in the organization being overseen by those with appropriate backgrounds or certified fraud examiner backgrounds to really understand where risks and problems can arise? The article references and recommends a multidisciplinary approach to addressing fraud risk as a committee rather than siloing as single departments. It highlights the idea that personnel at all levels of the organization have roles and responsibilities with respect to fraud deterrence, prevention, and detection, and encourages a member of executive management be placed in charge of the fraud risk management program for the organization. If you can, scroll down a little bit. Yep, thank you. The article then provides an overview of the 3 lines model for risk identification, mitigation, and oversight, with first line being management, second line being risk management and compliance, and the third being internal audit. In this model, the first line encompasses fraud prevention measures and controls for daily tasks. The second determines emerging risks, designates standards, and monitors compliance. And the third independently evaluates the first and second lines by conducting audits. On the next page, they include a flowchart outlining the connections and relationships between the governing body, management, and internal audit under the 3-line model. And also they stress under this flowchart the importance of a data-driven approach to fraud mitigation. A full copy of a position paper that was referenced in this article has been included at following the conclusion of the article. It is a full paper, and I'm not going to go over it like I did the article, but it is there if it is interesting to you and you would like to read it. Are there any questions about the professional article today?
Well, I want to thank you for doing this research each time and bringing something forward to us. Get our professional minds thinking. Appreciate the time and effort in your presentation.
Thank you. Happy to.
Are there any other items before the committee?
I do not have anything.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone's time, everyone's efforts behind the scenes as well as those today. And being no other actions, declare the audit committee adjourned. Thank you all very much.